Maite Rodriguez. Now, Maite wanted to be a marine biologist. She was already in contact with Corpus Christi University of A&M for her future college enrollment. 9 years old. Maite wore green high-top Converse with a heart she had hand-drawn on the right toe because they represented her love of nature. Camilla's got these shoes. Can you show these shoes, please? Wore these every day. Green Converse with a heart on the right toe. These are the same green Converse on her feet that turned out to be the only clear evidence that could identify her after the shooting. How about that? A cosmetologist. All right, she was well versed in mortuary makeup. That's the task of making the victims appear as peaceful and natural as possible for their open casket viewings. These bodies were very different. They needed much more than makeup to be presentable. They needed extensive restoration. Why? Due to the exceptionally large exit wounds of an AR-15 rifle. Can both sides rise above? Can both sides see beyond the political problem at hand and admit that we have a life preservation problem on our hands? We need responsible gun ownership. Responsible gun ownership. We need background checks. We need to raise the minimum age to purchase an AR-15 rifle to 21. We need a waiting period for those rifles. We need red flag laws and consequences for those who abuse them.
Rather than saying that, all right, here are the things that will disqualify you from a right to purchase a weapon, what if we reversed it and said, here are the things you have to do to qualify to buy a weapon? And so, just starting from Biden's thing, you say, well, you got to be 21. Now, if you want to go hunting with your dad, there can be some type of learner's permit. I'm sure, like those types of objections, I think, can easily be grappled with. I think one way to start this would be to think, okay, there is a type who becomes a mass shooter, who becomes a school shooter.
Absolutely.
And so, what kind of qualifications do we have to put on gun ownership that would reduce the types of people, like that type, that would make it harder for that type to get it? And one of them is that they're completely antisocial people for the most part. Actually, you could even start one layer back. Has there been a woman or a girl who has carried out a mass shooting?
I don't know.
Like is there a yes from? Did I hear a yes from the control room?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's been one or two.
Yeah.
But, all right,
it's obviously a wildly
over 99% have been men or boys. The other through line seems to be misogyny. Like sometimes these are race related, sometimes these are religious based, sometimes they're just like psychos, but all of them have some strain of misogyny kind of shot through them. And so, so is there some way that you have to show that you're a responsible citizen in order to qualify for gun ownership? One idea that I threw out was, what if you have to have two friends?
Friends, right.
That will vouch for you. And you could even say one female friend or two friends. Because really, if misogyny is at the root of this, like how many of these school shooters would have been able to find a single girl or woman, other than the Sandy Hook one, whose mother was teaching him how to shoot, to vouch and say yes. And so the idea would be, there's got to be some community involvement here. It can't be a government top-down thing. Like there has to be some buy-in from the community that says, you know what? Yes, I vouch for this person. And you can't vouch for like hundreds of people. You can't just have like NRA people at gun stores just checking boxes, like people buying liquor for underage kids. Like that's not what we're talking about here. You have to, your vouching has to mean something. Like the way that you sign, if you sign for somebody's car loan, a 16-year-old's car loan, they crash it, like you're responsible for that. So there's got this co-signing, this vouching would have to come with some type of liability. I don't know how this works out legally, but I feel like
me either.
Flipping this around, Or, I mean, if you go to Japan or somewhere, you have to take a course. There's a waiting period. There's a background check, and a background check is in some ways. Some types of background checks are there people who will vouch for you? And a lot of these shooters, like this kid in Uvalde, doesn't seem like he asked his sister to buy a gun for him last year.
Yes.
She said no way.
Yes.
So how do you take that understanding, that intuition that the community has, that families have about these people who know they should not have guns? Everyone who knows them they could be the strongest supporters of the Second Amendment out there. They're like, should that guy have a gun? No. So how do you activate that?
Here's where that makes me nervous. Domestic violence. So women who are afraid they are victims, repeated victims of domestic violence. They live in the same house as their husband.
Okay, good point. My idea is dumb because you could just pressure somebody into. Okay. Fair enough.
You could, it's the kind of thing that alerts the person that you're trying to defend yourself from. I don't know, but I like what you're saying. Basically, is that you have to have some community involvement, and that we have to basically reverse it and think more creatively. And I actually, when I look back on the last 2 decades of these conversations after these horrible tragedies, it's rinse and repeat. It's the same thing over and over again. We have the same conversations about all of these things that, if you look at the shootings themselves, a lot of these proposals are not targeted in ways that would actually have prevented the situation. Like even in Buffalo, he had been hospitalized. He was committed to a hospital because of psychiatric problems and still was able to get a gun in a state that has red flag laws. So we obviously need to be thinking differently, not just pushing the same things. I'm completely in favor of thinking that through.